Welcome back, Guardians. If you're planning on jumping into Pantheon 2.0 when Destiny 2's Monument of Triumph update launches, you're going to want to start preparing now. Pantheon was already one of the toughest PvE challenges Bungie has ever released, and Pantheon 2.0 is shaping up to be even bigger with rotating encounters, a full boss gauntlet, refreshed rewards, and some of the most difficult endgame content in the game. So in this video, we are going to be going over some of the bosses that we know that we're getting with Pantheon 2.0, just so we can get a refresh on all of the mechanics. Because Callus and Argos launched like 8 years ago, and then the Galran boss encounter launched like 6 years ago, and since then they have been removed from the game, so you can't even play them. So if you just started playing Destiny 2 like 4 or 5 years ago, you probably have never even played these encounters. So we are basically just gonna watch some old footage. Now this footage is not mine. We are gonna be looking up some old raid encounters from your boy Rick Cactus here. So shout out to Rick Cactus because I don't have any old footage of these raids. But before we start watching the footage, there are a few things you should know about the new Pantheon. At launch, 2 activities will be available, each with a unique lineup of bosses. The first Saturday after launch, a 3rd activity will unlock, which challenges players to take on the full gauntlet of bosses. The following Tuesday at reset, weekly rotators begin featuring individual bosses. Guardians can earn a new armor set for each class, a suite of weapons reprised from the original activities with a unique origin trait and hollow foil variants. Each multi-boss activity concludes with a vendor offering purchase of rerolls for acquired items with spoils of conquest. Reprised Pantheon encounters have a chance to reward ornaments for their original armor sets. For example, Callus may drop the armor ornaments related to the original base Leviathan raid for Guardians who have not unlocked them. Completing a new set of Triumphs rewards emblems, exotic cosmetic items, and a new title. And all activities offer a new adventure difficulty aimed at players looking for a lower stakes opportunity to learn and teach and practice for success. This lifts the power cap, allows infinite revives, and adds slack to the timing requirements for some mechanics, with the trade-off of a limited pool of lower tier rewards. So with all that being said, let's take a look at the first boss, Callus.
Upon entering the royal chambers, you're going to see the Jabba the Hutt ripoff himself sitting there with a big cup in his hand. You actually can shoot the cup to start this encounter or go stand right next to him. But either way, he's going to stand up and spawn a bunch of enemies and also shoot laser beams at you through his forehead. So that's something. In any event, you're going to have to kill a bunch of these enemies. In fact, you're going to have to kill every yellow health special enemy that has spawned here to trigger the next encounter. Once you do so, a bunch of those weird looking shielded scions will spawn yet again, 4 to be precise. Apparently you don't actually have to kill them, however we always did because they pretty much guaranteed, and remember you can kill them with a single melee, they pretty much guaranteed a power ammo drop, so that's very, very useful. So once you kill all of the adds, it's going to spawn 4 scions that are situated right beside the 4 exact same symbols that we keep seeing. You kill these 4 scions as quickly as possible if you want to get some free power ammo, and then you're going to be teleported to this very strange looking dimension with a massive fat Cabal head in front of you. Now aside from the massive head, there's a couple of other details you need to take notice of. Firstly, there's going to be 3 orbs to which you've kind of seen before, and also there's going to be a very low kind of shin-high wall across this arena. That is extremely important. Now this is where you are going to split your team up 3 and 3. 3 people go through each of the 3 different glowing orbs. They're going to get teleported back into the throne room. The other 3 teammates are going to stand behind the wall, preferably crouched, and do a whole bunch more stuff. Token per person, so you do not want to die, especially if your team is split up like this. The 3 people in the throne room should definitely be saving their tokens. They're going to have to revive more people, and they're more likely to die. In any event, again, you get teleported in, you kill a bunch of adds, but you also keep an eye on those scions and wait for instructions. Meanwhile, the 3 people on the outside are going to start getting sucked towards the giant Cabal face. If they jump, they will instantly die. If they hit a ramp as they're being sucked and fly up into the air, they will instantly die. If they go through a hole, they will instantly die. If they get blown up by a Scion that's going to spawn, they will instantly die. If, frankly, for no reason at all, the raid just decides to screw you over, they will instantly die. Trust me, that's going to happen. In any event, however, the 3 people outside are going to stand at that knee-high barrier. That barrier is the thing preventing you from flying towards the Cabal head and instantly dying. So again, crouch behind it. Each person is going to see a different symbol projected on the giant Cabal head. For example, I see a dog. My teammate may see the sun, and my other teammate may see the crossed axis. We're each going to shout out which symbol we see, and the one we didn't shout out. In this case, it would be the chalice. That's the one the teammates inside have to kill. One more time for clarity's sake. The 3 guys that are in the massive head part of the raid going to see a symbol each themselves, like a unique symbol that they can only see on their own screen. If I have dog, my other teammate has the sun, and my other teammate has the crossed axes. The last one, the odd one out, is the chalice. We say kill the chalice, kill the chalice, kill the chalice. The people inside run to the Scion that's near the chalice symbol. There's going to be the chalice symbol right above his head and all of the other symbols for the other 3, and they melee the chalice guy. Boom, that's what you need to do. Now, if they melee the wrong one, it's going to cause that barrier wall to instantly disappear, and if they melee the right one, it's going to make it so that the next one disappears. In the meantime, if you're out near the giant head, there's going to be the glowing Scions that spawn. You have to kill both of them. Each time they spawn, kill the right one and the left one. If you don't, they will explode and cause your entire team to wipe. And as soon as you're done the first barrier, you'll be pulled towards the second barrier. Again, make sure that you're standing in the right position, that you're not going to go off a jump or go into a hole, so actually move left to right to make sure the coast is clear in front of you. And when you hit that second barrier, from each barrier on this point forward, there's going to be normal Scions that spawn. You have to kill these as quickly as possible. Honestly, kill them before you kill the white ones. That's how important they are. Because if they get off their attack, where they make the void power and it goes and blows you up into the air, of course, if you're blown up into the air when you're being sucked forward, you'll instantly die. It's a nightmare. Just kill these guys first, then kill the white guys. And the whole time this is happening, you're going to need to also shout out the symbols you're seeing. There's a lot going on. It's going to take several times to get used to it, but that's really what you have to do. Eventually, you will not see any more symbols on the giant Cabal's forehead. You only have to do 3 of the rounds of symbols. You're just going to have to kill a few more Scions, and then he's going to start barfing skulls at you. And I am dead serious. This, however, is very important. You have to kill as many skulls as you can. There's about 60 total, and the more skulls you kill, the more damage you will do in the upcoming damage phase. Now, once the people in the big head arena are killing skulls, the people inside need to damage the boss as quickly as possible. He's going to be doing an animation, as you can see in the background gameplay, and if you don't kill him fast enough, if you don't lower his shield fast enough, he will cause your team to wipe. So DPS him as much as possible to prevent him from doing this. So once all the skulls have spawned, and you've hopefully killed around 50 is the number you really want to be aiming for. That's quite good DPS. There's going to be 3 portals that appear yet again. The 3 teammates in the giant head arena run through those portals and meet up with the rest of the teammates in the throne room. At this point, you begin the damage phase. What you're going to need to do is have all of your teammates hop on one of the different platforms that the Scions have been spawning. As you can see in the background, we chose to hop on the back right one, then the front right, then rotate over to the front left, and then the back left last of all. Technically, I suppose you could rotate to whatever ones you want to. Just make sure all of your teammates are on the same one, and then they all migrate to the second one. This is all about doing a ton of damage at once. There's a lot of good things you can use here. The Merciless Exotic Fusion Rifle was an absolute peach here, was fantastic. Also, Empowering Rifts are very good, especially if you're playing a Warlock and you're on the outside big head arena, because you don't really need a healing rift. There's no opportunity to use one, so use an empowered rift if you're one of those people. Golden Gun is also fantastic, especially if you can get those crits and spawn orbs for your teammates that do even more area of effect and damaging supers. But again, you just want to deal damage, as much of it as you can. So again, you're going to all hop on one platform, do as much damage as you can, and you're then going to see him raise his hand and yell. At that point, get off that platform, because he's going to cause a big solar explosion to appear right on the platform you were at, and you do not want to be there when that thing explodes. Likely teammates are going to die if they're too close. So as soon as you see him raising that hand, get off that platform and go to the next one. Damage the crap out of him from that next platform. As soon as you see him raise that hand yet again, go to the next one. Rinse and repeat. Now, if you do enough damage, you're able to take down a full third of his health, which is going to trigger the next phase. Turns out this raid boss is actually a robot, not the real Cabal leader, but an imposter. Pretty cool storyline element, but this is very important because he's going to change his tactics a little bit in this next encounter. Mainly, his critical is then going to change to his chest, so make sure you're shooting him at the chest and not at his head anymore. Now you absolutely don't need to get him to this robot stage in one damage phase. It just makes things easier. Essentially, the less damage phases you have, the less likely someone's going to die and screw up, because it was so mechanic driven. Very likely someone's going to die doing something. So after you rotate to each of the 4 different symbols, avoiding his attacks, and hopefully you get him to transform, that will be 1 damage phase thereabout. Then a bunch of ads are going to spawn. You're going to do the whole thing again like you did the very beginning of this encounter. Kill ads, cause a scion to spawn, kill the scions if you can to get free power ammo, get teleported out to the big head area, the 3 people staying in the throne room teleport in, and the other 3 people stay out. There's no changes of mechanics from this point forward to those main mechanics. So the people in the throne room are just listening to directions and killing the correct scion. And also slaying out. You got to kill a lot of ads. Stuff like Stormcaller and potentially hammers and stuff is very good here, where you can just kill a bunch of ads with your supers. And the people in the big head area are just going to shout out the proper directions and kill scions and hopefully stay alive. Now moving on to the second damage phase. One thing that has changed is that potentially again you've changed his form into the robot form. If you do that, he's no longer going to hold up his hand and cause the fire to spawn, but instead he's going to aim his gun at you, and at that point that's when you want to leave your area and go to the next platform to stand on. That's really the only change you need to be aware of for this second third of his health. So you're going to get through a second damage phase, let's say, and you're going to trigger him down to that last third of health. He's going to slightly change yet again. The only changes this time is that firstly, the whole time he's been lifting his hand, even sometimes when you're not doing a DPS phase and causing those solar explosions, if you see a solar kind of flare appearing near you, just get out of that area. You don't want to get hit by that. But now in the third damage phase, he's going to light a whole area of the ground on fire, so really try to avoid that. And also note that instead of the normal array of ads, big Colossus Cabal will spawn. That's very important because they shoot the slowing arc attacks, which can honestly completely screw your team over if you get slowed just before you're going to melee the right scion, you know? So you want to take those down as quickly as possible, team shot them, super them, you know, use potentially a little bit of power ammo, whatever you can. You don't want to save everything for the boss and then die because you were getting a little bit greedy. You need to survive that encounter. You need to slay out until you get to that damage phase. Moving on from there, 3 or 4 damage phases later, hopefully not 5, you're going to eventually do enough damage to Emperor Callus that you will trigger the last death mechanic. So just play it as normal until you eventually damage him, and then he will start to do one last kind of hurrah death mechanic, very similar to Axis in the Wrath of the Machine, where he's lifting his arms and you're going to have to do as much damage as you can to him, or else it will trigger a wipe mechanic. If you pump enough damage into him, he will die for good, and congratulations, you've just beaten the Leviathan raid for Destiny 2. This time, you're taking down the big bad boss that you've just unearthed, essentially. Now again, the base mechanics of getting the craniums and charging them into cannons in the respective elements is going to remain unchanged, so stay in your teams of 2. But at this point, instead of destroying crystals, you're going to destroy weird glowing orbs. So what's going to happen is that after the boss looks around and shoots at people for a bit, it's going to spawn those glowing orbs. At one of the sides, so potentially it's the arc side, potentially it's the solar side, potentially it's the void side, one of those sides you will see all 3 of these orbs. So let's say it's the arc side. You'll see maybe a void orb off to the right, you'll see a solar orb off to the left, and then you'll see an arc orb on top. There's always one on top as well. So what you're going to need to do is, firstly, spend some time charging the cannons. These cannons you're also going to use on the boss himself because they do substantial damage. So you're going to figure out where the section of shield is that you're going to take down. And again, it's simply the area that all 3 are going to converge on in a certain hole. And there's also going to be a ton of harpies spawning there as well. And then you're going to look at the elements of the glowing orbs. These elements are not always 1 arc, 1 solar, and 1 void. Sometimes they're 2 void and 1 arc. Sometimes they're all 3 solar, right? It's kind of random. So you're going to have to shout out where it is, like where the convergence is, and then you're going to have to shout out the different elements. So if it's 1 of each, great. You're going to charge at least 1 cranium in each different element, of course, to take them down. And then also, very importantly, you want to load up on craniums of the element that is where the shield is going to go down. And that's because you want to be able to grab these cannons and use them right away on the boss and then go to shooting rockets or what have you. Now again, this sounds very complicated because it is very complicated, frankly, but as we go on, as we explain more, as you see it in gameplay, it should become kind of obvious what you're supposed to do. So, once you have figured out the side and gotten all of the cannons charged with the respective elements, you're all going to converge. You're going to shoot the different orbs. Now, as you shoot them, they're going to move. So simply, shoot them with the beam and track to the right or to the left or downwards and move your orb into that hole in the very middle of that enemy's shield. Once all 3 elemental charges go into that hole, it's going to trigger the next mechanic. The shield is going to go down. You are going to get a buff as a team, which makes you do a lot more damage than normal, and then you're going to have the opportunity to damage the boss. Now again, the elemental cannons do a phenomenal amount of damage, so make sure you're charging all 6. 3 on the elemental side that, the shield is going down, and then if you have to charge 2 over at solar, make sure someone from solar brings the other one, even if he's just standing around and using it for DPS. Once they're out, again, just use your normal weapons. Now at this point, I would love to say it's just DPS the boss as normal, but it's far from normal. Firstly, there's going to be still a crap ton of just normal adds around you. You may want to dedicate 1 person with an area of effect super, like a Stormcaller, to use that and deal with the adds so your teammates don't die. Also, you may want to even be running 1 healing rift so you can tank some shots from the harpies that are inevitably going to be beside you. In addition to the adds, one more thing you absolutely need to watch out for, and that is that he shoots a prism beam at you. Yes, the prism is a real thing, and it's something that the boss is going to charge up. You're going to see it very obviously on screen. He's going to shoot some sort of weird electrical triangle at your team, and anyone in that pathway will get hit and will start to float away into space. Literally, you'll see in the background gameplay. When this happens, your team needs to communicate. Someone needs to say, hey, I've been hit. I'm in the prison. And then the rest of the team has to then turn and shoot your prison. You can't do anything from the inside. You can't even shoot, but everyone from the outside can shoot and pop it, and then you will just fall to the ground. So the longer you take to shoot it, the further that person will float away, and they can even float outside of the map, and it can be very difficult to go back without dying. And eventually, if you don't shoot them, they'll float away and instantly die. So you do really need to be cognizant of anyone who does get trapped in that prison and kill those right away. But this also means that your tactic for DPS is going to change a little bit. You actually don't really want to be clumped together like you are in Callus, because if you're all clumped together and he shoots the prism at you, you're screwed. It's going to hit a lot of you, and 4 of your guys could float away, and the other 2 are just desperately trying to shoot all of those different prisms. So that's not something you want to do. It's kind of a hard balance in between doing things like popping a rally barricade and just going absolutely ham with rocket launchers while still being spaced apart enough and mobile enough to dodge those oncoming attacks. So the absolute maximum damage approach is going to be to do DPS to the boss, wait until the first prism is shot, and then group together, pop a rally barricade, pop an empowering rift, get that huge damage output, go absolutely ham for those few seconds until you see his gun charging, then spread apart again so you don't all get hit by that attack. However, a more cautious approach, a safer approach, would simply be to stay a little bit spread apart regardless. Okay, so we're almost done for the mechanics in this encounter, I promise. After you do a DPS phase, so after your whole team shoots the boss for quite a while, doing hopefully quite a bit of damage, he's going to ball up again. The shield is going to spawn back in, and he's going to be immune from pretty much every attack. At this point, there's not much you can do. You can gain craniums and charge them, and they will be charged for the next time you need them, so that can be quite useful. But, very importantly, he's going to go into a wipe mechanic. So after you do a damage phase to him, you're going to just have to wait a little bit, and then he's going to lower all of his shields, and he's going to start charging void energy, and you will see that text pop up in the left-hand corner of your screen when he is doing that. So the shield's going to go down, and a bunch of rings are going to go around him, or I should say like semi-rings. You're going to jump on these rings and align yourself to shoot 2 of his crits. Once you kill 2 of his crits, he is going to stop the wipe mechanic. If you don't kill 2 of his crits, he's going to wipe your entire team, everyone will die, you're going to have to start again. So, what my team like to do is the first time, take down the 2 crits, which are the white glowing portions on his arms. And you'll see that in the background gameplay. Now the important part here is not actually damage. You can do as much damage as you want, but it almost doesn't matter. It's actually consistent damage, and only damage to the crit itself. So if you're getting white numbers, you're doing it wrong. You have to damage the crit. You have to be getting those yellow precision hit numbers. So something like hammers actually isn't good here, because those are going to be hitting around the crit more than actually hitting that crit. Something that is amazing for this part is the Cold Heart Exotic Trace Rifle. It's got 101 rounds. It ramps up in damage as you continue to shoot the same target, and a couple people with trace rifles can easily take down that crit. Remember, it's continuous damage. You don't want something that does a lot of damage right away like a sniper. You want something like an auto rifle, like a Cold Heart, to just continuously damage, continuously getting those crits, and then you will see it pop and go down. Just because it's red doesn't mean it's done. It has to actually kind of explode and go completely black. Now, my team found that the best way was to team up on one side, like everyone kind of on the right side. You can take that down very fast. Everyone move over to the left side. You take that left arm down. Then he's going to recoil backwards, and you have, successfully survived, essentially, from the wipe mechanic. Now, again, he has 3 sets of 2 crits. That means that you can cancel a wipe mechanic 3 times, aka you get 4 damage phases with this boss. So, after all of that, you're going to go back to charging the craniums, grabbing the cannons, shooting all 3 of the orbs at the same time, taking down his shield, using any extra cannons to damage him. By the way, shooting the head seems to still do a little bit more damage, even though everywhere is the crit. So shoot those cannons at his face, shoot rockets. Rockets with cluster bomb is still fantastic for this, and your Cold Heart certainly isn't bad either. After you've done a significant amount of damage, hopefully, he's going to turtle up again, you wait a bit, and then he's going to do another wipe mechanic. Now from the arms, you're then going to want to move somewhere else. My team like to do on top of his head, so you're going to have to take a little bit of time to get up those different rings around him, get to near the very top, and you can hit those very top crits. There's again 2, one on the right, one on the left, and then once you take those down, he's going to recoil, and again you've cancelled another death mechanic. Now the reason I like to do the crits Second, on the top of his head, is that they're the hardest to hit, so you don't want to be worrying about that in the very last damage phase. You want to get those done, and then you end with an easy one, is at least how my group like to do it. So you go through a whole nother damage phase with cannons, shooting, DPS. He's going to turtle up again, and he's going to have his last wipe mechanic. The last 2 crits are on his back, as you can see here. There's again 2 of them, one on the right, one on the left. So focus with your team to kill one, blow it up, kill the other, blow it up. He's going to recoil. There you have it. That's it. You get one more chance to take down a portion of his shield and DPS him, but if you don't kill him here, you will likely wipe because there's no more crits to hit. So, that is it for all of the mechanics within this encounter. Now for some tips. My number 1 tip is definitely communication. You need to be talking, you need to be communicating, make sure everyone has a mic, everyone has a good mic at that, because you need to know where the convergence is, so where your team has to bundle up and where you're going to DPS them, like on which side, and also you need to know which elements the different orbs are so you can charge the respective craniums. And also, another tip here, don't go wild with charging craniums. You don't want to just see a bunch of craniums, charge everything on void, and then it turns out you need 2 arcs and a solar. Well, you've just wasted a bunch of craniums there at void. So you don't want to do that. You do want to charge at least 1 on each side regardless, but then save some craniums, be a little bit open, wait for that communication, and then charge those afterwards where you know, like firstly where the spot is going to be, where you're going to have to converge, and then secondly, you know, what all the elements are, of course. I would also recommend to have somewhat of an even split of 3 and 3 between supers that do a lot of damage to a boss and then supers that do great damage against adds. You still want a few people on, you know, something like Stormcaller to kill those adds. They're still a very, very big problem, and if you ignore them, you're going to die. And in addition to that, you also want some stuff like, you know, Celestial Nighthawk Hunters and all of that stuff to still be able to do massive damage to the boss as well. So you want to kind of get an even split of those 2 things. And so, once you do all of these different things, once you master all of the mechanics, you will take down the boss. It's then going to suck you to your doom, except not really. You're going to be sucked up into the sky. Don't worry, you've done everything right, actually, at this point, and you're going to be teleported into the main Callus reward area. The same area you got the final rewards for completing the normal Leviathan raid, as you can see here. Go and collect your loot. And so guys, there you have it. So let's move on to the final encounter of the Crown of Sorrow raid, the big boss fight. Now here, you're going to be in the same arena, however, the walls that were up before, they're not going to be up. The transfer orbs are still going to be in the same locations and you're still going to use them, but again, you can travel freely around this arena. And the first thing you're probably going to notice is a massive boss that has now spawned. Shooting him in the face will start this encounter. Then, as pretty much always, a circle is going to spawn. Anyone who stands in that circle is going to get the Witch's Blessing buff. Just like the previous encounters, you want 3 people to get this buff and 3 people to avoid the circle so that they do not have this buff. What do you do here? Well, you are going to be pounded from all sides. Seriously, there's going to be that original big boss and 2 more spawning on the other 2 quadrants, and then they're just going to go to town with fireballs. You need, again, as many warlocks as possible to chain Well of Radiance over and over and over again if you are being pressured. If you're extremely high light, you can maybe get away with some healing riffs and so on, but chaining Well of Radiance is definitely a great approach. So again, more warlocks the better, but also warlocks with the Phoenix Protocol exotic chest piece, even though it was somewhat nerfed, it's still going to significantly help you get your super back faster. So, you start this encounter, 3 people grab the buff, you put a Well of Radiance somewhere in the middle. It actually doesn't matter which of the 3 sides you put it on, wherever you feel most comfortable, then immediately start ad clearing. The guys without the buff are going to have to shoot the Acolytes. They're not that powerful, but if you ignore them, they can definitely overwhelm you and deal enough damage to kill you inside the well even. And the people with the buff focus on knights, killing knights that have now spawned. Then crystals are going to spawn. So you're going to need to designate a two-man like strike force team that every time crystals spawn, and there is a sound cue for them, but you also want to be looking for them, they go off, one with the buff, one without the buff, and kill that crystal. Now again, this doesn't actually have to change because you can designate who gets the buff, so just one person of that strike force gets the buff off the beginning, one person, doesn't, and then those two people, every time a crystal spawns, they go jump inside. There's going to be the shield around it, just like the jumping puzzle. They jump inside, damage it, break it, and then get back to the well with the rest of the team. Crystals are going to spawn once every 30-ish seconds, and again, ignoring them will wipe your entire team, so the strike force needs to be busy and going to get the crystals every time they do spawn. The rest of your team, so far, does need to focus on adds, and then you actually do need another designated strike force of another 2 different people, one with the buff, one without the buff, to kill the boss. We'll talk about that in just a sec. Now again, there's no more walls to take down, but you still need to hit up those transfer stations to keep the buff alive. So, after the strike team kills that first crystal, it's a good time to everyone, as you can see, go over to one of the transfer balls. Everyone, once they're in the area, shoots it, it transfers to the other 3 people, and you all go back. Now, you actually don't need to transfer after the first crystal break. You can transfer after 2 if your team wants. You just need to transfer, obviously, before the time reaches 0. But what we found is, first crystal break, transfer, then go back, kill adds, 2 crystal breaks, then transfer again. Now, once 3 crystals have been destroyed, new enemies are going to spawn in the form of cursed thralls. Yellow bar, cursed thralls. So run and transfer and then kill these cursed thralls as quickly as possible. They are going to wipe your team. They're going to cause so many failed runs. It's not even funny. These guys are serious. So you're going to use likely an Outbreak Perfected to kill the boss. So using something like a heavy machine gun, or again the loaded question, something like that to kill these guys as quickly as possible is very, very important. So after that 3rd crystal break and that 2nd transfer, potentially you're going to have those guys to deal with, but also ogres are going to spawn. 2 ogres are going to spawn in 2 of the different quadrants, so the people that don't have the buff, they can't damage the cursed thralls. They need to look around as quickly as possible and kill those 2 ogres extremely quickly, because they can also cause a ton of damage. Now once the thralls are dead, and hopefully the ogres too, you have to deal with the boss. So that second 2-man strike force is going to look where the boss is, the same boss from the last encounter, so the guy with dual cleavers running around with the shield, and then they need to go and take down his shield when he is in between the 2 pillars, as you can kind of see in the background gameplay, when he is up on this platform. Then, once you take down his shield, he's just going to cower there. He's going to stand still. Then you make your way back to the well, and one or both of these strike team members turn around and look at the massive boss in the background. That guy is going to start to get a glowing green hand. Shoot that glowing green hand, and then, as you can see, he's going to smack down on the ground with his giant sword, and he's going to kill that boss you stunned. That's what you need to do. You need to do that on all 3 of these different areas. Go and stun the boss, shoot the green hand, cause him to smack the ground, and kill that boss. Once that's been done 3 times, then you're going to go into the actual damage phase. All the while, you need to be transferring before you die, and your other strike team needs to be dealing with those crystals whenever they spawn, and the other 2 guys in the well need to be killing as many adds as they possibly can. It is extremely hectic, there's a lot going on, and timing is everything. But there are cyclical rotations. So again, kill that first crystal, transfer, go to the well, then kill 2 more crystals, transfer again, get back to the well and kill the cursed thralls and ogres as quickly as possible, then go and deal with the boss, make him smash. After that, like crystals, transfer, then thralls, ogres, transfer, boss again,
and it's going to go in that rotation like every time. Once you get kind of that first rotation down, you hit his hand and he smacks that first boss, you kind of did what you did to get to that point just 2 more times. But again, because it's extremely hectic, people are likely to die. So that tip I said before of leaving someone out and transferring 2 to 3 people is often going to come up. So make sure you use that. Make sure that your strike teams have 1 person with the buff and 1 person without the buff. If someone dies that's on the crystal breaking strike force, for example, they need to call that out immediately and say, I need a guy with a buff. I need a guy with a buff right now, because if they don't get someone to volunteer and go and shoot that darn crystal, your team is going to wipe. Same with the other strike team that's killing the boss. If someone ends up dying, which it's very likely to do, that boss is so annoying, you are going to need to have someone else volunteer and run up there, and 1 person with, 1 person without the buff to take his shield down. So there is going to be some switching around. Deaths are not the end of the world because of that transfer tip I told you guys, but you need to really be aware of who has the buffs and who hasn't. Now, as I alluded to, the boss is kind of a nightmare. He runs around the entire map. He can even push so far forward, he's up in your Well of Radiance. So something to do is to have 1 Titan with a bubble and the Helm of Sate 14. So when the boss goes inside, you have Armor of Light, you're not going to die, and also he's going to get blinded and you can very quickly get a double smack, take down his shield, he stands still, go back to the well. That's what you're going to see in the background gameplay. Now, you don't actually technically have to do this. 2 people can just go in and smack him. But if you're finding the boss strike team is dying quite a bit, a Titan bubble is the way to go. Alright, now that is everything leading up to the damage phase. Now what do you do for the actual damage phase? Well, once the boss has again smashed all 3 of the miniature version of the boss, then the 3 different giant bosses are going to hold up their hands all glowing. Essentially, you need to kill the 2 decoys and find out which is the real boss. So, all 6 of your fire team members is assigned 1 of the hands. From the last encounter, if you had a certain quadrant, just have that quadrant again and just 1 person say, I'm the right hand, another person says, I'm the left hand. So when he lifts all his hands, everyone shoots 1 of those hands until it's down on the ground, and then his face is going to be able to be damaged. You shoot his face until the decoys will recoil back and disappear, and then there's only going to be 1 remaining. If you don't achieve this for whatever reason, you're going to have a much shorter damage phase and potentially wipe your team. So take down his 6 hands, shoot him in the face until he's immune or it disappears, then it's going to reveal the guy you actually need to damage. At this point, super importantly, quickly run and transfer, because you want a fresh buff for the entire damage phase. You don't want to have to run and transfer your buff because you're in the middle of the damage phase and you're like, oh crap, there's only 10 seconds remaining. Everyone, we gotta leave the damage phase and go and transfer. So make sure you transfer like just before you get into the damage phase. And the timing for that is that there's going to be 1 crystal spawn after you've, destroyed all the decoys. The strike team goes and kills that crystal. Everyone else goes and basically transfers. The strike team can go and transfer at another location, or you can wait for all 6 people, and then you start your damage phase. The 1 real boss is going to lift his 2 hands. Yet again, you shoot the green hands, lower them down, then his face is able to be damaged, and then you can start actually inflicting damage on the boss. You'll see his health bar finally go down. The mountaintop, I've heard, is fantastic here, but the Outbreak Prime is, as always, an all-star. It just inflicts so much damage. Even with the level cap bonus that's in the first 24 hours, we were able to just 2-phase this guy. So yeah, Outbreak is fantastic. Remember, if you are using the Outbreak, to pre-fire. So after you're shooting his face, he's going to become immune again, and he's going to raise his hands again. You can shoot his hands before they start glowing, so as soon as they start glowing, you're going to get them down, and then you can start shooting his face again really quickly. You're in for another, damage phase, then he raises his hands again, shoot his hands again, go back to the face. So you're going to go from hands to face to hands to face several times, as you can see in the background gameplay, during this encounter. Again, constantly be firing, keep that Outbreak bonus up, or whatever weapon you're actually using, and be sure to pre-fire those hands so they go down super quickly and you can get back to damaging. Now, while you're damaging this boss, there are going to be ads. There are going to be just normal thrall that push you. So half the people of your team are going to have that bonus. They're the only people with Witch's Blessing that are going to be able to take down these thrall. So you should be able to tank them when you're in the well, but they can throw off your shot. They can cause you to start missing. If they all focus on one guy, they can technically kill them. So just someone with the buff, when you're being absolutely harassed by those thralls, just throw a grenade, take them out. But if there's a warlock with that buff, be sure to melee them for an empowered melee and 20% more damage for your entire team. That's a very useful tip as well. In any event, once you're done this damage phase and the boss kind of disappears, transfer again right away because you're probably nearing the very end of your buff, and then get doing back to what you were doing. Like literally do the same stuff in terms of crystal killing, boss smacking, and then just staying alive, killing ads, and so on until you get to another damage phase. If you even need it, you can technically one phase this guy. And once you do damage this guy enough, he's just going to die. There is no, final stand mechanic. You are going to complete the Crown of Sorrow raid and collect your loot. Guys, that is it for the complete Crown of Sorrows raid guide. I really hope you enjoyed this video, found it informative, found it helpful. If you did...
All right, Guardians, did you guys take notes? That is every single encounter. Well, not every single encounter. That's some of the encounters that are going to be coming in Pantheon 2.0.